I was a little bit fiddly on the technicals there, guys. Sorry about that. Right, so welcome to this very impromptu retro review. This is not the stream that's occurring later. The stream that's occurring later is about the two Wyatt Earp films. That is at 11:30 p.m. UK time. This is just another review. I'm going to be doing lots of these, lots of these. So I wanted to do something for the 4th of July, and what better film to talk about than Born on the 4th of July. Hello, Keith. You're possibly my only viewer right now, but hang in there, sir. I'd like to hear your comments. If you're watching this stream later and you like what you're seeing, please put a comment under. If you're watching the stream now, I can see a few more people have come in. Do please share and repost. I'm going to talk about this film. I've even got the cinema tickets from when I first saw the movie, and I went to see it at the very first screening in the UK, which proves that the information on IMDb about the UK release date is actually incorrect. We're going to get into that in just a second. I also have the vinyl soundtrack for Born on the 4th of July. So not only do I have my cinema tickets from when I went to see it, obviously went with somebody. I couldn't tell you who that person was. But I have also got the vinyl soundtrack. The music was composed for the film by John Williams. I was a little bit disappointed that there wasn't more of the instrumental music on the soundtrack. I do prefer my film soundtracks when I was purchasing them back in the day. I was less interested in the ones that had kind of like 20 pop hits on them and more interested in the ones that actually had the music from the film. Now, this had a bit of both. It's got some of the John Williams tracks, I think about 4 of them, Prologue and a couple of other things. And then, actually, it's got the original score is on one side and the songs are on the other. So you've got 6 tracks from the score. So it's a pretty good balanced soundtrack, I think. I did like it. It wasn't like one of my top 5 soundtracks of all time. We're going to do a stream about that, and you guys can get involved. But anyway, so I'm going to put this up here next to my Indiana Jones vinyls for the moment, and we could do a whole stream about Indiana Jones. Let's get into Born on the 4th of July. So first of all, the release date misinformation. Let's address that. That is on that's on IMDb. That information, I can tell you, is incorrect. So I don't care what anybody says at IMDb, it is incorrect. I'll tell you how I know in a second, not least because of course I've got the tickets. Now, Born on the 4th of July release information is listed as follows. UK, United Kingdom, you will see the release date is listed as March 2nd, 1990. Well, I can tell you that March 2nd, 1990 was a Sunday. And films that were released in London back then were normally released anywhere between 2 to 8 weeks ahead of the rest of the United Kingdom. So they would play a film in the West End cinemas, maybe in 2 or 3 screens, sometimes just in one, and then it would get its wider country release. So because I lived an hour's train journey from London, central London, I would get on a train and I would go up and see films on the biggest screen I could, especially films like this, event movies, I would call them. I remember that I was at the very first screening of Born on the 4th of July in the UK. It was an absolutely packed out auditoria, and it was the only screening of it that day. And so what would sometimes happen would be it would be on at one cinema for about a week, then it would go to other West End cinemas for a couple of weeks, and then it would go around the rest of the country. And sometimes that one cinema would get it even a couple of days earlier than normal. So this first UK screening, and it was the first, was on a Monday. You can see that. It's on the ticket. Monday, March the 3rd. Okay. So this is at the Empire Screen One, which is now an IMAX Cineworld. Everybody still calls it the Empire that remembers. So the first screening of it was on a Monday. It was packed out. It was an event seeing it packed out because, you know, every seat in the house was full. The capacity for that screen was around 890. So I'm seeing the film with nearly 1,000 people. Okay. And that has a big impact on you when you're in a cinema with that many people. I saw Platoon in a cinema also in Leicester Square, but not the same cinema, the Odeon Leicester Square. And I remember that was packed out, and the tension in there when we were watching that film was really palatable. I mean, it was very palatable. So let's just do a brief lowdown on the film for those people who have never seen it. It is the true story of Vietnam veteran Ron Kovic. It's based on the book of the same name, and he was indeed born on the 4th of July. And it's the story of him doing I think he did 2 tours in Vietnam. He was injured on the second one, paralyzed from the waist down. I guess we're getting into spoilers a little bit, but most people know that about the film going in if you see the trailer. And it's considered to be the second of Oliver Stone's unofficial trilogy of films about the war in Vietnam. It was shot in Texas, Northern California, and the Philippines. Philippines doubling for the sequences in Vietnam. Starred a very young Tom Cruise in what I would say was his first. It was not the first movie where he was any good. He was great in Risky Business, which was his second feature film. Second feature film as a lead. All the Right Moves being the first, and of course he had a little role in Endless Love. But this was the movie where he really got to show people that he wanted to be a serious actor, and he had the chops to be a serious actor. He took this role incredibly seriously. He undertook military training. He spent a lot of time with Vietnam veterans, and you can really see everything that Cruise put into this role on the screen. It's all there. You can see it. It's very, very palatable in his performance and so on. Good to see Josh in the house. Good to see you, mate. Probably a film you've not seen, Josh. So listen in, and you might want to check it out at some point. So it's told over several years. We see Ron's life kind of when he's a child, growing up in Massapequa, which is, I think, is an area upstate New York, I believe, somewhere around there. It's a very kind of idealistic white picket fence, 2.4 children, family upbringing that he has in a moderately conservative household. His father fought for World War II. And, you know, they have this idealized version of what being an American means. And our father's got to fight in WW2. We missed out on Korea. You know, this is our chance. And there's a great conversation about that in a kind of fast food restaurant with him and all his sort of college buddies. And he's a wrestler at high school. This is a great scene when he first comes home. I've got to tell you that all the cast, including the kids in this movie, are absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Keith. Massapequa in Long Island, New York. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Good to see you, Melvin. If anybody's a big fan of this movie, shout out in the chat. I'm going to talk towards the end about what my rating for it on IMDb is and so on. William Dafoe and Tom Berenger kind of reprised their roles and almost their characters from Platoon. William Dafoe plays a kind of more spiritual vet who's also been crippled and partially paralyzed. Tom Berenger plays a recruit, and it's very their characters very much echo their characters from Platoon. Now, Platoon, you've got to remember, okay, growing up in the UK, we didn't know a lot about the Vietnam War. It was still going on when I was an infant. And I do remember vaguely remember images on the television of the mass evacuation of Saigon, the people queuing up to get on the helicopters on the top of the roof of that building, stuff like that. But it was something that wasn't really talked about in the UK. We didn't know much about the Vietnam War in the UK. The film that taught us what the Vietnam War was about was Platoon. I was at the opening night of Platoon. And for those people tuning in, I have my cinema tickets for Born on the 4th of July right here. Look at that. There they are. As well as the vinyl soundtrack, which is up on the shelf behind me there. Oh, my mic's in the way. Sorry. We'll do that again. It's up there. It's up there. There we go. I suppose Platoon educated me in terms of what it was like to be an American soldier on the front line of the war in Vietnam. And then I was further educated by Full Metal Jacket, which kind of taught me what it was like to train as a soldier to go to Vietnam as well as be on the front line. And then you had, Hamburger Hill and other things. Now, I had seen Apocalypse Now, but I saw that film when I was very young and really did not understand it and thought it was very strange. I appreciated it more when I watched it as an adult. I'm still not convinced it's the great film that a lot of people think it is, but it is a very interesting movie. So whilst Platoon educated me on what it was like to be a veteran on the front line, Born on the 4th of July is the film that educated me as to what it was like to be a veteran coming home to a divided country where half the population didn't know what to say to you and the other half of the population didn't respect you. I also, Melvin has just, we've got a few regulars popping in now. Guys, do share and post about the stream if you can. Much appreciated. Dave Macy's in the house. Melvin, of course, who I'm often seeing on other streams. Gardner Stone was with Jimmy Kahn. And I saw that at the cinema as well. The one with Tommy Lee Jones, I forget. Bat 21 is another one of my favorite Vietnam films. But this is the film that sort of gave me a wider expanse about veterans' issues, about the divide of the country back home, about the sequence of events that led to things like Kent State, which, of course, I wrote a script about later. That was my contribution towards this piece of history, I guess. And you can see a dramatized version of that on the channel, guys. All 5 episodes of it are there. We kind of did it as a radio play in lockdown, but with a lot of visuals, which makes it a bit more fun to watch. But you can just put it on and listen to it like a radio show. So Tom Cruise really committed to this role. Now, this is the group of kids who are all at school. Among their number is a favorite actor of mine, Frank Whaley. Frank Whaley, I've actually messaged on Twitter, and he has given me the decency of a reply. He doesn't like doing interviews. He's quite a shy guy. A lot of people won't remember that Stephen Baldwin had a tiny role, and there he is at the back on the right there, one of the Baldwin brothers in this. Jerry Levine as well, who's a fantastic actor. And the other 2 actors in this scene I'm not that familiar with, but this is the gang, most of whom, except for Jerry Levine, signed up to go to war. And the only 2 who came back were Tom Cruise's character and Frank Whaley's character. And Frank Whaley has some incredible scenes in this, one of the best of his career. So one of the things I've got to say about this film is that the performances, for me, across the board, are absolutely outstanding. From the actors who play Ron Kovic's family to his comrades in arms, to the people in the hospital, the dreadful hospitals where injured people went, and the production design, the look of the era, everything in this film is fantastic. Kyra Sedgwick, also known as Mrs. Kevin Bacon, is brilliant in this as Kovic's love interest, as he was as a child. And she represents the life he could have had if he hadn't gone to war, or if he'd stayed down when he first got injured, because he could have stayed down and not been paralyzed and still got out the war with that wound, because he was shot in the foot initially. He could have got out, and if he just stayed down, and he kind of did this John Wayne thing, bang, 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 and took another round, and that severed his spine that second round. So this is a beautiful scene at the graduation where he snatches a dance with her before he goes off to Vietnam. I mean, so there's the real Ron Kovic, who, by the way, does appear in the movie in a couple of scenes. He's a World War II Vietnam veteran the first time we see him. This is during a protest on a campus back in the States after he's come back, and is now sort of edging his way towards being a protester against the war. And again, this is towards the end. That's a beautiful still. I've not seen that before. Now, man, I'm getting choked up just looking at that, actually. So that's Tom and Ron, the actor playing him, and there was some controversy with Cruise being cast in this role. Now, actually, I don't know if you guys know the backstory to this film, but the backstory is this. The original person who was supposed to play this role was Al Pacino. And the film originally got written by Oliver Stone. It was one of his earlier scripts in consultation with Ron Kovic in 1978. However, the financing for the film fell apart. Eventually, Pacino pulled out. And then the film went into what we call turnaround in the industry. And a bit like my film Pegasus Bridge is in turnaround. So it didn't get made for over another 10 years. Now, what happened was, of course, Oliver Stone had a massive hit with Platoon. And they were like, well, what do you want to do next? And after he did Wall Street, he wanted to come back and tell this story. And now he had the clout to also direct. So he got to direct. Ron Kovic was very happy with him doing that, following what had happened with Platoon. And of course, Pacino was now too old to play the role. So he was, when the project gathered steam, he wasn't even a contender at that time. By the way, thanks to the 5 people watching. Don't forget to hit the like button. Do subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I really appreciate your time tuning in. I really do appreciate it. So the project, basically, the principal photography took place in October 88, and it lasted 65 days. And the film went over budget, ended up costing 17.8 million, so nearly 18 million. That's quite a big budget back in those days. Dollars after reshoots. Reshoots weren't so common back then. I don't know what the reshoots were or why they had to do reshoots. The other people that were considered for the role, by the way, the second time around, were Sean Penn, Charlie Sheen, and Nicolas Cage. Now, I think Charlie Sheen was the forerunner of those, but I think by then he was, his reputation was preceding him a little bit, shall we say. And I'm sure Sheen is an awesome guy and nice to work with now, certainly. So Cruise met with Stone and really pushed to get the role, but Stone dismissed him because he said, you did Top Gun, that's a fascist movie and all this. I don't think it's a fascist movie, but anyway, it's just a fun movie. But so Stone really was dismissive of him, but Cruise pushed. And he spent a year preparing for the role. He visited Vietnam veteran hospitals. He did the work. I mean, he earned this role, I would say. And it's on screen, the work is on screen. Yeah, it's a really powerful script. It's all the more powerful because it's a true story. Robert Richardson was the DOP. The film looks and sounds wonderful. John Williams did the script. Now, Oliver Stone won Best Director for this. Now, Tom Cruise was also nominated for Best Actor, but he lost out to Daniel Day-Lewis for My Left Foot. That was well-deserved, but I have to admit, I was actually rooting for Tom to win this role because I could see how hard he'd worked to get away from his kind of golden boy image. And that's the real Ron Kovic there. Cruise had really worked hard. He'd put the work in. I felt he deserved it. I'm not saying that Daniel Day-Lewis didn't for one minute. Robert Richardson, who shot the film, and they shot it on Super 16 and 35mm, depending on the various things that they were doing. This is the 5th time he'd worked with Oliver Stone. I think he's still around. Let's just have a quick look on the IMDb. I think he's still around, and he's done quite a lot of work. And we'll get into the cast in a little bit as well. Here we go. So music by John Williams, needs no introduction, of course. Billy Hopkins on the casting with Risa Brayman Garcia. Billy Hopkins, of course, is one of the biggest Hollywood casting directors. So he is still around. Robert Richardson is still around. Good to see that. Let's get a picture up of him because I've never seen him before. Okay, Private War, very good. And there he is. That looks like a nice bit of kit. And it's great to see he's still going strong. So let's have a quick look at his other credits, just because. So he did Kill Bill. He's also Tarantino's. He did Air. Okay, director of photography on Air. So guys, director of photography on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Breathe, Adrift. The list goes on. The Hateful Eight. So this is Tarantino's DOP. I should have probably known that because I'm a massive Tarantino fan. Plus, people say I look a bit like him, so I get that all the time. I really should have known that. And this is the man who did the DOP on JFK, which, by the way, I think is the best cinematography in any film ever. Just my personal opinion, but there we go. Nice to have you in, Awesome One. If you're a fan of the film, please pop a comment in and tell me why. Keith E, proud to be here. Thanks very much. Josh telling people to, and yes, happy 4th of July. I should have said that at the beginning. Happy 4th of July to all my American friends, fans, viewers, and collaborators. I hope you're having a good one. So let's go back to the cast list. Oh, there we are. A little bit too far there. Okay, good. Just looking at some of the other people that are in this film, I always, on my streams, I always like to give the character actors, the people that do the in some ways the harder job sometimes. And I'm sure Tom Cruise will tell you, casting the guts of a script right is so important. Yeah, your lead can carry or sink a film, but getting the guts around your main cast is so important. And the guts of the cast on this film are cast brilliantly. So we have Raymond J. Barry as the dad. Doesn't quite know what to do with his son when he comes back. 133 acting credits, still going. And he's an actor I've always liked. He's done a lot of theatre. I haven't had the privilege of seeing him on stage, and I wish I had. Caroline Carver, I've seen a few things, not as many as the dad. She's done 40 credits, IMDb. Last acted in 2005. I do remember her actually in Law and Order. I do remember her in Dawson's Creek. So, good actress, good solid actress, great performance in this. I mean, his parents have fantastic chemistry. Melvin's asking an important question there. Is it celebrated in Texas or do they have an Alamo Day? That I do not know. Josh Evans is an actor that I wish I'd seen more of. He plays Cruise's brother. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but he really stands out. So he's now a director. Okay. Done 8 directing credits. Oh, I should try and get him on the channel. Just 8 acting credits, but director up until 2016. Do you know what? Josh, I think I might try and track you down, see if you'd be prepared to come and talk about your career. I thought he was very underrated in this. Small role, but he made his. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but he really played the conflict that he felt about being an anti-war protester. He was against the war, and he had a brother who'd fought in the war, and he was very uncomfortable about it. And those scenes really stand out for me. Now, Jason Gedrick was in this. A lot of people might remember him from Iron Eagle and Backdraft and a few other things. He was in this playing a very small role, I think, again, as one of the other. Yeah, he was one of the other soldiers. Let me just Sean Stone, of course, is always doing little cameos in his dad's movies. Let's just look at the other cast members. So we've already talked about, of course, some Oliver Stone regulars. William Mopether is also in the platoon. He's one of the members of the platoon. So he's one of the soldiers. That's Tom Cruise's cousin, of course, who's not a bad actor and has certainly earned his spurs in that regard. We talked about Kyra Sedgwick. Again, this is Frank Whaley. I absolutely love Frank Whaley as an actor. I might even do a Frank Whaley stream. This guy is one of the most underrated actors working in the industry today. 127 credits. He's also done some directing. Let's have a quick look at those. And I think TV episodes mainly. Is that right? Let me just have a... Oh, no. Okay. Here we go. Right, I need to track down these things because I don't think I've seen them. Anyway, I really like Frank. Fantastic actor, very intense. Again, not somebody who likes publicity. He's really good in this. He acted with my mentor Keith Gordon, who directed him in a war film called A Midnight Clear, which is a film I want to do a stream about. It would be great to talk about that. I try and get Keith to come on, but I don't think he will. Again, he's not a guy who likes doing interviews. But Ed Lauter is also in the movie in a small role. We lost him, of course, a few years ago. Often plays bad guys. He's very good in this. I could talk about the cast at some length. Of course, Dale Dye's in it because one of the first films he was a military advisor on was Platoon. I'm gonna try and get Dale Dye to come on the channel. I think he might for me, but we'll see where we go with that. He's just been on a friend of mine's channel, and I'm hoping to get him on the Outcast Creative channel. Now, did you know that Vivica Fox was in this, playing a hooker? I suspect one of the ones that comes into the hospital, and I know exactly the scene I'm thinking of. Yeah, she's in this very, very briefly. Vivica Fox is in Born on the 4th of July. I bet not a lot of people know that. So and Tom Sizemore also has a tiny role. Of course, we lost him very recently. That was extremely sad. I think he died of a brain aneurysm, which is the same thing that killed my dear friend Angela Thomas. Anthony Pena, isn't he got a fairly decent career now? Or is that maybe I'm thinking of a different guy? I think I'm thinking of a different actor. I'm thinking of Michael Pena. Mike Starr has been in absolutely loads. Most people will remember him from The Last Dragon. Michael Wincott, of course, bad guy in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, bad guy in The Crow, also in Born on the 4th of July. There's quite a few names in there who've done well for themselves. John C. McGinley, another one of my favorite character actors, and another veteran of Oliver Stone's. This man is fantastic. You'll know if you've seen him in stuff, you'll remember him. He's always good. And of course, he had a very significant role in the film Platoon. All right, so look, let's get back to the film itself. I could talk about the cast all day, being a director. Okay, so what do I think of Born on the 4th of July? I'm not an expert on the Vietnam War. I have seen the two very extensive documentary series, and I feel all the better for watching those. I am very aware of how divisive it was and still is in American culture, and just in it's, you know, embedded in the American psyche as this sort of scar that damaged a lot of people on all sides. But you do hear a lot of great stories about, you know, American veterans that have gone back and done all these projects in Vietnam for kids, and you know, they meet veterans from the other side, and there's a lot of beautiful things very far down the road that came out of it. But this is before that. This is the story of, you know, what happened to one veteran, and a story that divided a family, divided a nation. It's about PTSD. It's about survivor's guilt. It's about a lot of things, not just the Vietnam War. And for my money, one of the reasons the film succeeds is because it covers a rich tapestry of issues that certainly, of course, the political is in there, but they exceed the political. There's a lot of very relatable issues. This is the scene where he comes home, back to the old town, shown in the trailer here, and then he's scared by the firecrackers. I mean, there's so many beautiful moments in this film. Now, I remember when we showed it at the cinema I worked at, there was an intermission because it was quite long. I remember that there was an intermission. Yeah. I have a feeling as well that my ex came into the cinema where I worked with her new fella, and I hadn't used my 2 free tickets, and I gave them to them as a kind of, yeah, you're all good sort of little thing. I think that happened when they came in to see this. It might have been a different movie, maybe. I don't know. Thought it might have been this, but so I am interested to know, with the people watching, if you've seen the film. Put in the chat now, what would you give this on IMDb out of 10? I'm going to tell you now. For me, it's a 9. It educated me on the Vietnam War. It educated me on the veterans' experience. Cinematography in it is absolutely outstanding. The performances are of Oscar quality, from the supporting cast right through to the leads. The score by John Williams is excellent. The choices of music are excellent. The script is good. The film is long, but when I watched it again recently, I couldn't find anything in it that I would cut. So, you know, on that basis alone, I've got to give it a 9. It's in my collection. I've got the DVD. I used to have the VHS. I don't think I've got the Blu-ray. But yeah, this is a film I do recommend, particularly if you're looking for something that will give you the veterans' experience of the war back home. I mean, it does cover the tour of duty to a lesser degree, but this is, you know, and this is the film that takes a lot of American ideals and juggles them up in the air, and they don't all quite land where they should. It's clever. On the one hand, you can, even though, you know, I know Oliver Stone is predominantly the left side of politics, and in case people are wondering, I don't stand firmly on one side or the other. I judge each situation on its own merits when it comes to my view on politics. I think politics is a lot more nuanced than I believe in the left or I believe in conservatives. You know, it's a lot more nuanced than that for me. And I take each topic in turn. I don't think it's easier that, oh, if you think this way on this topic, you're this way politically. No, I don't think it's that simple. So I would argue that there's a lot about Born on the 4th of July that's very patriotic and very much about the American dream. And then, of course, the flip side to that is it's also a film that's about what happens when all of that goes wrong. It's from an acting point of view, I would say it's probably the strongest of Oliver Stone's Vietnam trilogy, followed by Platoon, followed by Heaven and Earth. I want to rewatch Heaven and Earth because I think Heaven and Earth was unfairly criticized when it came out, and I would really like to see that again. Keith is giving it a hard 8. Yeah, I was kind of veering between an 8 and a 9, but when I asked myself, okay, what are the things that are really good about it? The script's really good, the cinematography is really good, the score's really good, the acting's amazing, and yeah, Josh, still one of Cruise's best performances. For me, the two roles that show that Cruise can really take on absolutely anything are his role in this and his role in Magnolia. And that's where you see Cruise really like, okay, guys, I can act. I can do more than just run and shout and jump on things and fall off buildings, literally in some cases. I mean, you know, and I know, for example, that even though producers would say, no, he's wrong for the part, if Cruise took on the role of Joseph Kellner, the main lawyer in my 13 Seconds in Kent State script, because it's a courtroom drama, that's very much an Atticus Finch type role. And Matthew Modine has just played that role in London's West End. Cruise would not be the immediate person you would pick to play Joseph Kellner in a courtroom drama about the shootings in Kent State. But you know what? Cruise would put some glasses on. He would grey his hair. He would inhabit that role, and he would do a damn good job. Yeah, I think Cruise has really earned my respect. He earned it pretty quickly, actually, after Top Gun, because he was very shrewd about the choices that he picked. I thought he was great in Rain Man. Dustin Hoffman got all the credit for Rain Man. I think Cruise was just as good as Hoffman in Rain Man. I actually think he had the harder role to play, and I thought he was just as good. I felt he should have also been nominated for an Oscar for Rain Man. And I remember Dustin Hoffman was so upset when he went and did his speech and he forgot to mention Tom Cruise, and he tried to get back on stage and they wouldn't let him. Little side note story in case you haven't heard about that. So Born on the 4th of July, definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. I know Vietnam is a very difficult topic. I was talking to my friend Copa Catania about that. His father served there. Keith has just mentioned his oldest brother was a Vietnam vet, and he was never treated very kindly until about the early 90s. Yeah, I mean, no one wanted to go there, did they? No one wanted to go there. And it was, it's like when we invaded Iraq, because it had oil. The same issues that we said we invaded it for were happening loads of other places all over the world, but we didn't go in there in force, did we? There's no oil in those places. So I can't I can't see. I can only go on the voices in music. Is that about the score, Keith? Are you talking about the score, or is he talking to? Sorry, is that a comment? Saving Private Ryan and 1917, given both 9 out of 10. Need to rewatch them. Oh, okay. Well, Josh, this is a very different movie from Saving Private Ryan or 1917. They are both very visceral cinematic experiences. This is more about a character's journey, a single character's journey. It's got a huge arc, and it's all the better for it. I don't think it's a better film than Saving Private Ryan or 1917. It's just it's the same standard of filmmaking. It's that level. Right, now I've got another stream at 11:30. So tonight we are doing Wyatt Earp versus Tombstone. Which film is better? Help us decide. If you want to come in and pass your vote, that's at 11:30 p.m. UK time. So I've got another stream in a bit. There was talk about me jumping on Retro Nerd Girls channel for a bit today. I'm not sure if that's happening. But if it is, of course, I will share the stream. But everyone, that's I think that's it for now. So I absolutely do recommend Born on the 4th of July. Again, if you didn't see these earlier, these are my cinema tickets. This proves the day that it was actually had its first UK screening. Make a note of the price. £7.50, very expensive in 1990. That's because that is London's premier cinema screen. Seats about 890. It's now an IMAX. And that also tickets for like opening weeks for films that weren't yet released nationally would always be slightly higher priced. And yeah, that was in my favorite seats, row CC as well, which was about, I think that was that was the third row of the upper tier. It was like one long rake, but with a aisle in the middle. So before we go, there's one other thing I want to show you about the Empire Cinema. Let me show you. So, yeah, I think Retro is going to be... Oh, Best Patriotic Movies. Yeah, I think I'm going to be on Retro's stream, I think, in 20 minutes. Okay. Yeah, Empire Screen One laser show. Here we go. Right. Good. So, as you may have heard, I took a lot of people to see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And the first time that I went there was the first time that the Empire had been sort of redressed, if you like. And this is what happened when and this laser show would have been there for Born on the 4th of July as well. This is what happened when just before the film started. Kind of lightning came down, for illuminating the auditorium, and then you got this sort of welcome to, and yeah, it was pretty cool. This is on somebody else's channel, by the way, Spoolbox. So thanks for uploading this. Do subscribe to their channel. You had this kind of little laser show. Now, I know this all looks very kitsch now, right? But I got to tell you, if you weren't expecting it and you're sitting in the cinema, it was pretty fucking cool. It was pretty, especially when I took 40 people to see it. None of us knew it was coming. So yeah, that was the yeah, THX as well. It was one of the first screens with THX. That was what would happen. That was a proper good night out, because it just all, there was a big buzz and it just all made part of the atmosphere that bit special. And you know what, no one else was on their phone. That's the other good thing. Really need to get a better light in here tonight. I look like some kind of skeletal creature. So guys, I'm going to head off. I might be on Retro stream in a bit, so if I am, look out for me there. Otherwise, I'll be back on the Outcast Creative channel at 11:30. Thanks very much. Thanks for tuning in. Spread the love.